Faced with mortal danger, would you be able to stand your ground and fight for what's yours? This is a story of courage, strength, and limitless determination. In this video, we'll look at how Rita Sweenor, a retired nurse, chose to fight a rabid coyote with her bare hands, rather than give in and let it kill her. This story takes us back to August 16, 2017. It was a Wednesday, one of Rita's husband's golf days, which meant the woman would have a couple of hours to enjoy her own passion, nature. Rita Sweenor was 64 years old and a retired nurse. Some people seek a more comfortable lifestyle after retirement. Some even seem like they can't find their footing and don't know what to do with all their spare time. But Rita definitely wasn't one of them. She wasn't one to sit idle and wait for things to happen. Instead, at 64 years old and after a 40-year career as a nurse, the woman kept being wanted. Years before, she had undergone bypass surgery, but she'd always tried to stay healthy, especially after her surgery. Rita was passionate about living and could find beauty wherever she looked. That's how and why the woman found a new hobby after retiring. She couldn't just do nothing when her husband went golfing, so instead she picked up a camera. Active as she was, the woman was quite comfortable with long walks through nature, and she knew there were a lot of wonderful things to be seen out there, especially if one knew where to look and had the determination and patience to wait for magic to happen. And Rita Sweenor had those qualities, and also a camera with a big 600mm lens, perfect for snapping shots of birds. The woman loved photography and birds, so connecting her two interests into one big new hobby wasn't a hard thing to do. She would go on walks and wait for the chirping little creatures. She liked walking slowly and sneaking up on the birds. That's how she got her best shots. On that August 16, 2017, Rita woke up early. Although many knowledgeable birders usually name dawn or just after sunrise the best moments for birding, Rita chose mid-morning as her arrival time. She was to walk on a bike path, one she knew quite well. Rita Sweenor and her husband Dave lived in Gonsvoort, a hamlet in the town of Northumberland in Saratoga County, New York. The woman would usually walk on the Washington County Canal Path. The town is located at the entrance of the Hudson River and the Champlain Canal, which, as Rita knew, makes for some great views. On that morning, Rita Sweenor drove to Towpath Road. She left her car and then started walking north on the bike path. She wasn't the only person on the trail that morning. At some point, she stopped, spotting the subject of her next photos. It was a great blue heron, a large bird that can usually be found at a river bend. They feed on fish, which makes them stand motionless for long amounts of time as they scan for prey. In doing so, they become a target themselves for the eager cameras that want to snap some beautiful nature shots. The bird was just too beautiful not to be photographed. Rita stopped, waiting for the perfect moment to take her pictures. As she stood waiting, a couple on bicycles passed her. The woman had her camera ready for action. She started taking photos, careful not to scare the great blue heron away. At some point during the photo shoot, the 64-year-old retired nurse felt something strange was going on with her leg. It was a bizarre sensation, one she couldn't quite describe as pain. A grown coyote had her ankle in its mouth. It was latched on her leg. Rita Sweenor's heart skipped a bit, terrified. Coyotes can be found all across North America. Canada, the U.S., Mexico, and even Central America have their fair share of the animals. Like any wild animal, these canines can be dangerous, but attacks against adults are rare. As a rule, they should be avoided and treated with caution, especially because they pose a real threat to small animals and children. But Rita Sweenor was a fully grown woman, and she knew the animal's behavior wasn't normal. The moment Rita saw the animal with its mouth around her ankle, the woman knew it was rabid. Any mammal can get rabies, and when animals do, they turn aggressive, crazed by their disease. Rita had spent 40 years as a nurse, and she knew she had to get away from the animal as quickly as possible and get rabies shots. With this disease, every minute is crucial. The woman took her precious camera and hit the animal multiple times with it. It finally let go of her leg, but as you probably know by now, it wasn't over. Angered, the animal jumped at the woman's face. It no longer had any interest in the woman's legs. It was aiming for her face, crazed and fully intent on biting her. It kept coming at the woman, no matter what she did to try and stop it. Rita Sweenor was afraid. She thought she was going to die. At one point, the woman managed to grab her phone and dial 911, but she didn't have enough time to hit send. Once again, the animal leapt at her. Rita knew she couldn't outrun it and risked putting herself in an even more vulnerable position. And she knew she couldn't afford letting the rabid coyote get her on the ground. Instead, the idea was pretty clear. Stand your ground and fight for your life or die. The woman somehow pinned the animal to the ground, her hands wrapped around its throat. Adrenaline had already kicked in, and she was ready to kill the animal with her bare hands if that was what it took. But as she moved her hand to get to its trachea, the coyote got free again, and it started attacking the woman over and over again. It attacked her 10 to 15 times. Thinking fast, the woman realized she could maybe throw the animal in the canal and have it drowned. The first time she threw the animal in the water, it got right back, continuing its attack. Rita didn't give up and threw it in the canal a second time. And once again, the animal used its reflexes, skills, and aggression to get out and attack the woman. In her third attempt, the woman had the coyote's mouth around her hand. She reached around the animal and grabbed one of its rear legs. But as she tried to throw it in the canal, she also fell in. For whatever reason, this saved her. The coyote disappeared, but Rita was aware she wasn't fully safe until she got to civilization. What if it was still lurking, ready to strike again? She set out to walk across the canal, but the water was thick with mud. The mud was up to her hips, and walking was slowed down even more by numerous weeds. To Rita, it felt like she was walking through thick soup, but she finally reached the other side of the canal. She climbed out and looked down at her body, quickly assessing the seriousness of her condition. While she didn't have an extensive idea about how bad she was hurt, Rita could see her arms, and they looked far from okay. Her right arm was ripped open. She could see her bones and tendons, and even a blood vessel spurting blood. She had to apply pressure to keep herself from bleeding to death, so Rita wrapped her arm in her shirt. But despite not feeling any pain, Rita knew she had to get help immediately. She looked up and spotted a house in the distance. In order to get there, she had to jump over a short barbed wire fence, but her energy was depleted. It took 3 attempts to make it over the fence, but she finally made it to the old farmhouse, the home of Ennio and Sharon Ruggi. There was a car in the garage, which meant the owners were home. Rita pounded on the door, only vaguely aware she might spook the people. But she couldn't see herself. When Ennio Ruggi opened the door, Rita could see on his face just how badly hurt she was. Her scalp was ripped open, her nose cut in half, her lip was hanging, and all her limbs were bleeding, some more than others. The man called 911 and kept Rita company while they waited. When the Fort Edward Rescue Squad got there, it took them no more than a glance to decide to call for a helicopter. Rita Sweenor was taken to Albany Medical Center, where she was brought right into the trauma room. A team of around 30 people worked together to stabilize Rita, clean her up, and bring her into surgery. She was given extensive treatment for rabies. Plastic surgeons reconstructed her face. The Fort Edward Canal Path, where she had been attacked, reopened on Tuesday, August 22, 2017, after the coyote was caught and killed. A necropsy showed what everyone had already guessed. The animal was indeed Rabid. Rita Sweenor said she loves animals, but although it's not their fault, the public has to be protected. She was happy the animal was caught. To Rita, this was the most horrifying experience of her life. At the moment, she said she would go birding again, but she'd bring protection, either mace or a pellet gun. She even considered getting a pistol permit.